Fort Braddock always had this scent: gun oil, old sweat, and something unspoken, like the ghosts of orders barked in the rain and old battles nobody wanted to talk about. Not really. They called it a place where tradition hung heavy, where power always moved downhill, and folks who tried to climb up better be ready to bleed. You couldn't just walk into Fort Braddock and expect to change anything, you know? But then, out of nowhere, Captain Alina Torres walked in, and it was like someone struck a match in a powder room. She wasn't big, wasn't loud, didn't show off her medals, but I swear, even the crustiest old-timers straightened up when she showed up. Maybe it was her eyes. Maybe it was just something about the way she moved, quiet, certain, tired in a way only people who've seen too much can be. She was 32, but her record read like someone twice her age, tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. A Purple Heart she never mentioned, and enough respect that nobody needed to say it out loud. Her father had been a Marine drill instructor, her mother a schoolteacher in San Antonio. So yeah, you grow up learning when to keep your mouth shut and when to put your foot down. Learning how to command without ever raising your voice. Alina joined up not for legacy, but for something she needed to earn for herself. She outworked everybody, stayed later, learned the rules, then learned where they bent. She hated laziness and hated injustice even more. And at first, it seemed like maybe Fort Braddock would be just another stop, another proving ground, until she met Colonel Briggs. Briggs ran that place like his own little fiefdom. Decorated Gulf War vet, sharp suit. Never a speck of dust on his boots. Command presence, he called it. Most just called it bullying. He was quick with punishments, slow with praise, and everyone knew better than to get on his bad side. When he first met Alina, he barely looked at her. Another soft promotion. He grumbled, just loud enough. She stared him down a half-second too long, and that's when the games began. It started slow. Always does, cutting her off in briefings, calling her solutions civilian, marking up her reports with stick-to-basics in red pen, reissuing her orders as his own. It wasn't feedback. It was a grind, a testicle meant to break her down or send her packing. But Alina'd seen this play before. She knew to keep her head down, keep her team sharp. Don't let them see you sweat, because the Army's got rules, but it's got shadows too, and the shadows are where folks like Briggs thrive. Her soldiers respected her, but nobody said it out loud. Then the rumors started, stories about female officers getting transferred out quietly, complaints going nowhere, the kind of stuff that disappears unless somebody makes a scene. One night, a note slid under her door. Be careful. He's watching you closer than the others. No signature, just a warning, and 2 weeks later, he made his move. She was alone in the ops room, finishing up paperwork, when Briggs stepped in, locked the door, and started in on her, telling her she was making men uncomfortable, that her discipline was uptight, that she was bold for a woman. He got close, real close, enough she could smell coffee on his breath. She never blinked. Permission to leave, sir, she said, and for a heartbeat, nobody breathed. He backed off, and she walked out. Outside, the wind snapped the flag overhead, and something in the air shifted. She knew, right then, things would never go back to normal. After that, it was war by attrition. Officers started glancing over their shoulders, whispers in the mess hall, and Briggs doubled down. He called her junior, ignored her findings, pushed her unit to exhaustion with stress drills in the blazing sun, trying to break them down in public. But here's the thing, her soldiers didn't break. She ran beside them, helmet on, sweat and dust just like everyone else, and they finished first. He watched from the tower, fists clenched, but if anything, that made her squad more loyal. When Briggs couldn't break her in the open, he worked behind the scenes, supplies delayed, promotions denied, training canceled. He started speaking directly to her squad, trying to cut her out. But that's when her staff sergeant Reeves, big as a mountain and twice as steady, came to her. We know what's going on, he said. We're behind you. It helped. But Alina knew, when someone like Briggs starts losing control, that's when things get dangerous. It all boiled over during a public drill in front of the whole battalion. Alina gave a standard command. Briggs shouted across the field, called her out, stepped in close enough to make a scene. You think you can embarrass me, Captain? He sneered. She stood her ground. I followed protocol, sir, just like you taught last month. But he wasn't after logic. He wanted fear, obedience. He raised his hand to strike her, right there, in front of 282 soldiers. That's the thing about power. Cross the line, and sometimes it breaks back. She caught his wrist midair, moved with a snap. Years of training compressed into 1 second. Crack. And suddenly, Briggs was on his knees, arm twisted, face pale, the whole yard stunned silent. Alina didn't flinch. "You will never raise your hand to me again, Colonel," she said, and you could feel the respect ripple through the ranks. Not for the takedown, but for the line she'd just drawn. The field emptied slow, rumors blazing, and for once, nobody was afraid to talk. Back in her quarters, Reeves came to her. "You didn't lose anyone out there. If anything, you gained loyalty most officers never get." But Alina knew it wasn't over. Within the hour, investigators showed up, paperwork started, statements collected, and she was pulled from duty. Pending inquiry. Walking the base, soldiers didn't look away anymore. They looked at her like they'd seen something worth believing in. The army doesn't like its rhythm messed with. But you can't hush up something like this. Commanders flew in, briefings got tense, and for the first time, people started talking about more than a broken arm. They talked about power, abuse, about how silence had become the real chain of command. Staff Sergeant Reeves brought her coffee. "They're scared," he said. "Not of you, of what you started." That day, the complaints started pouring in, anonymous, signed, detailed. The dam had burst. Briggs called it a setup, lawyers talked career assassination, but the footage didn't lie. Senior officers convened a hearing, General Huxley presiding. No nonsense, hard as old boots. "You caused quite a disruption," she told Alina, but there was something in her eyes, maybe respect. Alina just said, "With respect, ignoring it is what let him operate so long." Huxley nodded. "You've changed this base. Be ready for more responsibility." But it wasn't just responsibility, it was attention, and soon, transfer orders followed. They sent Alina to Westfield Command Center, called it a promotion, but really, it was containment. She didn't protest. Reeves met her outside. "Is that a win?" he asked. "They didn't bury you. That counts." As she left, a private saluted. "Thank you, ma'am. Not for what you did to him, for what you showed us." That's the thing. Once a fire starts, you can't control what it burns. Westfield was all sharp lines and quiet offices, but within days, she realized her voice mattered. Commanders listened, asked for her input, shared their own stories. Across the country, the story spread. The snap heard round the base, trended on veteran forums. Female soldiers and their allies sent messages. Complaints long suppressed now had a name attached, Torres. A week later, she was tapped for a task force, reviewing complaint suppression at bases across the region. The reckoning had gone national. When the public Article 32 hearing started, Alina faced Briggs in a courtroom packed with generals, soldiers, reporters, witnesses. She told her story about the day, the years leading up, the culture of silence. "I neutralized a threat," she said, and the threat wasn't foreign. The panel listened. More officers came forward, detailing years of abuse, threats, ruined careers. By the end, the verdict was clear. Briggs, stripped of rank, dishonorably discharged, referred to civilian court. Returning to Fort Braddock, Alina found the base changed. Cheers at her promotion. Salutes that meant something. Staff Sergeant Reeves grinned. Private Morrill wiped away tears. Alina saluted back, not as a symbol, but as a leader who'd just shown 300 soldiers what courage looked like in real time. That night, in her notebook, she wrote, "Never again." Because the fight was just beginning. One woman's refusal to back down had snapped more than one arm, and Fort Braddock would never be the same. You know, sometimes justice isn't quiet. Sometimes it's the crack that wakes everybody up. Now, let me ask you, where do you stand when the line gets crossed? Would you have done the same? Share your thoughts below, because in stories like this, the fight for what's right never really ends.